Ponzi scheme. Yeah, you must have heard the term and associate it with various pyramid schemes. But do you know the man behind the story? Well, let's talk about it on the Anything History channel. Imagine arriving in America with only $2.50 in your pocket. A decade later, you're one of the richest men in Boston, living in a mansion, driving luxury cars, and showered with the trust of thousands. This is the story of Charles Ponzi, a man whose ambition and charm helped him build one of the most infamous scams in history. Carlo Pietro Giovanni Guglielmo Tebaldo Ponzi was born in 1882 in Lugo, Italy, to a family of modest means. His parents instilled in him a love for learning, but young Carlo often dreamed of a life far grander than his provincial town could offer. In his youth, his charm and wit made him popular, but his impulsiveness often led to trouble. Ponzi enrolled at the University of Rome La Sapienza but squandered his tuition money on gambling and parties, eventually dropping out. With no clear path in Italy, he set his sights on America, the land of opportunity. In 1903, he boarded a ship with just $2.50 in his pocket. Like many immigrants, Ponzi struggled in his early years in America. He worked as a dishwasher, waiter, and clerk, but his ambitions far outpaced his reality. Each job felt like a stepping stone to something bigger, though he wasn't sure what that was just yet. In 1907, Ponzi's travels took him to Canada, where he worked for a bank that promised high returns to Italian immigrants but was actually a massive scam. Ponzi learned an important lesson here: trust is the currency of deception. His own involvement in forging a check landed him in prison for the first time. Prison wasn't just a punishment, it was an education. Surrounded by seasoned swindlers, Ponzi absorbed their tactics and began to see fraud not as a crime, but as an art form. After returning to the United States, Ponzi's eureka moment came in 1919 when he stumbled upon international reply coupons, or IRCs. These were meant to simplify postage between countries, but Ponzi realized a loophole. Thanks to fluctuating currency values, he could buy IRCs cheaply in one country and redeem them for a profit in another. At first, Ponzi genuinely believed he'd discovered a revolutionary business model. He pitched the idea to investors, promising an astounding 50% return on investment in just 45 days. The plan seemed foolproof until greed took over. Ponzi's promises were irresistible. Within months, he was receiving millions of dollars from investors. At its peak, Ponzi was making $250,000 a day, about $3.5 million in today's money. But behind the scenes, there was a dark truth: Ponzi wasn't actually investing in IRCs. Instead, he was using money from new investors to pay returns to earlier ones. It was a classic pyramid scheme, and it couldn't last forever. In 1920, investigative journalists and financial auditors began to dig into Ponzi's operation. They quickly realized that his debts far outweighed his assets. By August of that year, the scheme collapsed, leaving thousands of investors penniless. Ponzi's charisma didn't waver. In court, he famously said, even if they never got anything for it, it was cheap at that price. But the law didn't share his sentiment. He was sentenced to prison for mail fraud. After serving multiple prison sentences, Ponzi was deported to Italy in 1934. His charm and ingenuity led him to several new ventures, but none succeeded. In his later years, he lived in poverty, working as a translator and teacher in Brazil. In 1949, Charles Ponzi died in Rio de Janeiro, nearly penniless. Reflecting on his life, he reportedly said, "My business exploits have taught me one thing: everyone wants to get something for nothing." Charles Ponzi's name has become synonymous with financial fraud. His scheme wasn't the first of its kind, but it was the most audacious of its time. Ponzi's story is a reminder of the power of trust and how easily it can be exploited. Charles Ponzi's story is a cautionary tale of ambition, deception, and the allure of easy wealth. From humble beginnings in Italy to the heights of Boston's elite, his meteoric rise and fall reveal the dangers of unchecked greed and the vulnerabilities of those desperate for a better future. Ponzi's scheme was the blueprint for financial fraud, inspiring others like Bernie Madoff, whose massive investment scandal shook the modern financial world. His name now lives on as a synonym for fraud, a legacy carried forward by countless others who have exploited trust for personal gain. Ponzi's story is a stark reminder to approach promises of quick riches with skepticism and to always question, is it too good to be true? Come back to the Anything History channel for more intriguing stories like these.